Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the replay of this webinar on mental illness, on memory improvement, on passwords, and why all those things go together. It's actually pretty interesting. We just released a new podcast earlier in the week on 3 effective brain training exercises for mental illness sufferers, and that's actually a guest post from Alex Moore, so please check it out. And you can listen to me narrate the podcast. He did a really great job on that, and really what's so interesting about it is that we all have some sort of mental illness. Really, at the end of the day, we're all suffering mentally, and the reason why we suffer mentally is something we could talk about for thousands and thousands of hours, and many of the great spiritual leaders do talk about it all the time. A lot of it has to do with desire, right, and expectation, because expectation, as I learned many years ago, is the fastest path to suffering. And so we have to always manage our expectations in order to make sure that we are not creating undue mental suffering, mental illness, and so forth. So we all are mentally ill. But then there are things like schizophrenia, and Alex has a website called schizlife.com, and he created this post for us partly to draw attention to that option for you to go and check out that website, but also because brain training, mental exercise, has been shown very legitimately and very substantially to help with mental illness issues. And I have that myself in my own experience with depression, manic depression, and so forth, and it was a huge thing. Now, it's not a replacement for medicine. Got an interesting email that we'll go through later, basically pointing out someone was disappointed that we didn't mention medicine in this particular post on magneticmemorymethod.com, and that wasn't the express purpose of it, but no one is saying to not take your medication, and certainly I took medication for many, many years to deal with these issues, as one should. But there's problems with that can occur if you are not getting other options offered to you. So straight from symptom to pill is not necessarily the most intelligent thing to be doing all the time. You want to test things like diet and sleep and hydration and whatever else might be going on in your life in terms of stress that could be impacting all of this. So the idea that just going and popping pills is going to be a cure is not necessarily the wisest and most intelligent thing to do at all times, even though it may necessarily be part of the mix. And so you always got to go and see your doctor. Nothing that I say here is medical advice whatsoever. And I myself have done all the health optimization things that I do, which we can talk about, with the help of doctors and so forth. Anyway, the whole thing here about this is that you take action, you get yourself informed, you take educated action, and then you explore what options you have, because that's what life is about. It's about a constant process of optimization. And the more that you get involved in your own optimization of your memory and your health, which affects your memory, the more you're going to succeed. So if you're joining us on this live stream, hit the thumbs up. Let me know where you are in the world. Type some stuff. Did you know that if you get active in conversation, that you actually remember more, you learn more, and you are able to retain more for a longer period of time because you're part of the process? And if you're watching the replay, you can also get that effect by posting in the comments below. And we're going to have a good session today. Got lots to go through, lots of emails and so forth, and really look forward to interacting with you if you are feeling interactive. Now, you might be wondering what's going on here. And to go through first an email, one of those coinky dinks that one likes a lot is I was drawing this last night, and one of the things I like to do is draw while I'm going through memory palaces. So I then write out on the page whatever it is that I remembered in there, and it really is just like a neat way of asking your mind, hey, what was in that memory palace, and then putting out some numbers, or in this case there's some other information over here in pencil, and really is a creative way of unlocking whatever's in there without brute force, because you're just kind of enjoying yourself, relaxing, playing with color. And got a really nice message from Daniel Cohen this morning after I'd finished this, and he's talking about memory palaces as mandalas, and you'll want to go to the previous live on about how to maintain your memory palace habits and look at his comments, because he gives a couple of links to some really cool resources in his comments. So thank you for that, Daniel. But one of the things that comes up is the use of mandalas as memory palaces, and that's exactly what I'm doing here. Like there's two ways to use mandalas at least. One of which is to create them and review your memory palaces as you go through, and the other is to actually create them in a way that they can be used as memory palaces. So this just coincidentally is what I was doing in terms of actually creating some sort of mandala to rehearse memory palace information, and then here is actually creating a memory palace through a mandala creation process. By the way, in case you're wondering what this /comp is, we're doing a webinar next week, and it is all about managing passwords. It's about managing your desktop, about managing your mobile, all the things that are crushing our memory due to overwhelm of so many subscriptions, so many logins, and so forth. That's at magneticmemorymethod.com/comp. The link is below in the description area. Please register for that if you care about relieving the overwhelm. What does COMP stand for? Well, obviously computer, but it also stands for computer organization equals mental peace, right? Because we always got to have some sort of acronym going on, right? So computer organization equals mental peace, and that's what we're going for. And there are 5 things that we're going to talk about, 5 strategies you can use. There's no replay on that webinar. You're going to want to get it. I'm turning this into a premium course and probably adding it to the masterclass because it should be there, and then offering it independently for people who don't want the whole masterclass. But it's all part of the Digital Amnesia Project, helping people protect their brains from the decay of what's happening to our minds due to technology. Not that we want to get rid of technology, but we want to be able to manage it better. So if you are interested in that webinar, go to magneticmemorymethod.com/comp. Hey, Sandra's here. Thanks for saying hello. If you're joining us, say hello in the chat. And, you know, one of the things that Daniel is mentioning here in his chat is this book on Ramus, which highly recommend that you check out. Very, very good book. And also continuing the conversation with Bruno on the shadows of the ideas, which is very important. And definitely get into that stuff. Also, I don't know if Sarah's here, but thank you for recommending Lit Up. It's here. It's arrived. Going to start reading it very, very soon. So that's very cool. And yeah, so anyway, basically the thing to be doing here is to be involved in your memory at multiple levels. And it's just a powerful strategy so that it's not brute force. You're not just, but you know, you draw a little, color a little, and you're able to go through at a much deeper level. So back to the mental illness issue, the point is taken in the email that I received that we didn't cover medicine, but medicine is definitely something you need to be doing with your doctor, and it is a good point taken. Generally about this post, what's really cool about it, if you haven't read it yet, is that there are some points about the medicinal side of medication on your memory. And certainly you will lose control over cognitive functions if that's damaged. And so, you know, you can be getting certain benefits from these medicines and then losing other things that you had all along, which happened to me with certain medicines that I took, where I just completely lost executive functions over concentration and focus at a time when I needed them the most. And, you know, when isn't that time? But in any case, information about that for you there, and also the links to the things that Alex found about brain training exercises in the Edwardian era and Pelmanism, all very powerful to go through. There's a video there with 4 brain training exercises that you can go through, focusing your attention and so on. And then he goes through what he thinks are the top 3 techniques for improving your memory in terms of brain exercise. So that's all very valuable. If you have any questions about that, well, you can leave them on that post, and I hope that you do. Hope to see you active there and enjoying the process of exercising your memory, whether you have mental illness or not. But as I said at the beginning of this, we all sort of have a mental illness of one sort or another. So that's really important to attend to, because if you're not attending to your brain and your fitness and so forth, the slide into some sort of mental illness can happen quite quickly in terms of dementia or Alzheimer's, and you may not even notice that it's happening. And In that case, then what are you going to do? If you don't even notice that it's happening to you, then you're going to be in some kind of trouble, I would think. So we want to definitely keep that in mind as something that we can do. So moving on with some email, we are going to basically have a look at this one about learning directions and so forth, and people really worrying about relying too much on GPS. So Billy says, I've been looking around many memory books on how to study my way around town. I do a lot of driving and meet various clients, but I'm way too reliant on GPS and so on. Is there a course or a technique to help me memorize directions for good? Well, yes, use a memory palace. That's definitely something that you can and should be doing. And if if you don't, if you just take the information and you put it out. If you have a memory palace, you lay it out in the organization. Use the linear structure of the memory palace in order to lay out the information in the order that you want to remember it. So even if your journey through a city isn't linear, you can use the linear aspects of the spatial organization technique to allow yourself to navigate that in a very, very good way. So if you're just hopping on and joining us now, let me know in the chat, hit the thumbs up, and tell me where you are in the world and what you're doing, what you're thinking. And if you have any things that you want to ask about in terms of these kinds of issues of mental illness and so forth, then you can pop those in. Memory techniques are definitely helpful because there's a way of attenuating your focus on particular outcomes that can really, really help you. So that can help. Sandra says, picture seems to be reversed in the title of the book you held up as if we were seen in a mirror. Do we need to change some setting? I've never noticed that, but let me look on my own YouTube channel and see how things look. I'm gonna watch myself here for a second. Mute it so we don't get a background. Oh, you're right. Everything shows up backwards. I wonder why that is. So, sorry about that. I hadn't realized that before. Well, I apologize, but anyway, it's COMP. I don't really know how to express that it should be reversed other than an arrow like that. But if you want to join the webinar, I'm gonna watch myself for a little second here. Does that not show up in the right order? No, it shows up backwards. Really weird. I apologize for that. I'm not sure why they would make this that way with the software, but anyway, the / is magneticmemorymethod.com/comp. The link is down below, and again, it stands for computer organization equals mental peace, so, or memory peace for that matter. But yeah, reversed picture. Thank you for pointing that out, Sandra. I don't think it's a setting on your thing, but I don't know if oh, Sandra says it's never done that before. You know, there's a lot of updates going on the internet and with software and so forth. The internet feels very broken over the last week or so, and that's one of the reasons why I want to do this webinar about computers and our memory and managing better. I've had strategies around this for many, many years. They're different than the way a lot of people operate computers, and they may or may not be for you, but that's why I wanted to throw this webinar together. And it's just things change, and all of a sudden everything's upside down, and we're in backwards world, and it can be quite frustrating. It's certainly frustrating right now what's happening because there's GDPR, and Google just changed a bunch of stuff on Chrome where you're not allowed to have videos autoplay and stuff like this. And you're supposed to do this, and you're supposed to do that, and they got everybody who has a website running around like crazy. And of course, then it drives all the users crazy. And how do we prepare for this? How do we deal with it? And when we have large learning projects, how do we enable ourselves to be able to take those large learning projects and succeed, especially when we have to do it in our minds and we have our computers and the wildness of computers. I sometimes meet people and they have just thousands of files, or it looks like thousands of files on their desktop. But my desktop is almost always completely empty. And the reason why is because it is not a good organizational strategy, at least for me, And there's ways of naming files that make it much easier to search so that you don't have to rely so much on remembering things. There's ways of organizing them. There's many, many things you can do. And that's why we're holding this webinar. I'm sorry that this is backwards, but it's magneticmemorymethod.com/comp to register for the webinar, and comp is our little code word for computer organization equals mental peace. And that's really what I always strive for, is as much mental peace as possible. There's many strategies for it, especially with the topic of what Alex wrote for us at magneticmemorymethod.com on his post on the most effective brain training exercises for mental illness sufferers. And again, we all are suffering in this way at some level. We need to attend to these things to reduce our suffering. So if you're just joining us, hit that thumbs up. Let me know where in the world you are, and apologies for the mirror effect. Don't know why it's doing it now when it hasn't before, but a lot of things change fast on the internet all the time, and we hope that the powers that be have better purposes in mind, even though it sometimes doesn't seem that way. All right, so let me know if you have questions about anything, and I'm going to look at a little bit more email to catch up on what's going on and answer some questions there for you all. And let's see. Yeah, it's just really wild. There's so many people now, they're emailing, and you email them back, and you get an error response. Just, it seems, there's one saying I've always loved from the Jesus Lizard. It says, when it pains, it roars. And it seems like there's just so many changes all at once on the internet. And it's kind of frustrating when it happens all at once. But in any case, we try to keep up with it as much as we can. Thanks for joining us live now, and hit the thumbs up. Let us know where you are in the world, and we'll keep going here. I'm looking for some more emails to go through. Many people have been, like Alex, submitting or asking if they can submit articles to magneticmemorymethod.com, and by all means, we've got some student testimonial videos coming up, some student podcast episodes, and if you're using the techniques and you feel like you'd like to be involved in the discussion, then by all means get in touch. And if you want to write for the site, that's very, very welcome. I'm all about featuring new, upcoming, established writers. There is a page with submission guidelines. It is magneticmemorymethod.com submission-guidelines, and you can definitely get involved in deeper ways if you like. And so really, again, thank Alex for that post that he offered us. And yeah, basically, we've got the questions just keep coming, and here's an interesting one about how people. This is more of a comment from Steven. He says, we spend billions of dollars on physical fitness and on gym equipment performing tasks we are most likely never going to replicate in our daily lives, like pushing weight off our chest while lying down or running in place. And yet these exercises are viewed as fundamental to our health and longevity. How come we don't apply a similar philosophy to the brain? And why must a mnemonist explain the practicality behind reciting 1,000 digits of pi while a weightlifter needn't explain the purpose behind benching 500 pounds? Just a thought. Keep up the good work. Thank you, Stephen, for that. And it's an interesting point, although I would say that the health and fitness industry is filled with people explaining exactly why you would want to do benching 500 pounds and so forth, and what it does for bone density and so forth. It goes on and on throughout that industry, and it's just part of how they educate. But yeah, the point is that it is kind of an ongoing, enduring task to keep explaining to people the reason why we want to memorize information has to do with speed of recall, and all kinds of things that are going on in terms of your brain processing at multiple levels all at the same time. Sandra asks, does anyone else see comments in chat? I'm only seeing my own. I think so far, Sandra, you're the only person to have chatted, but I don't know. Again, there's these changes on the internet. The GDPR has now this privacy policy stuff, so maybe YouTube is no longer enabling chat the way that it did before. The legislation came down today, and so it may be that if you haven't clicked this or that button, you haven't agreed to have your name displayed in a live chat, and so maybe you're the only one, Sandra, who has, because it is unusual that no one is saying hello except for you. And I don't know why that is, but if anybody else wants to join in and chat, then we would have an answer there. And you know, one of the reasons why you want to, even if it's backwards, register for these private webinars is because then it's on my own hosted stuff. We don't have to deal with as many powers that be, and we can have a session that is more friendly than all these things that are going on. So that's at magneticmarymethod.com/comp. So Potato Man's here, okay. Michael's here. Thank you for saying hello. Now we know that the chat is working. Sandra, can you see their chat? And can you see Sandra's chat? That'd be interesting to know. Potato Man says, I'm Hikaru Inua from India, currently attending a college in Japan. Oh, wow. That's amazing. Thanks for saying hello. Thanks for joining us. Thanks for being active in the chat. Michael's here. Thank you, Michael, again from UT. All right. Cat Satan is here. I love that name, Cat Satan. What a joyous name that is. Wonderful. Where did you arrive with that from? That's awesome. Cat Satan. I'm gonna remember that because that's gonna be a great mnemonic, a great magnetic image in the near future. Cat Satan. Awesome. So yeah, if you're not seeing each other's chats, it may be because of new regulations and rules, and always very interested in what you all think about these regulations, because I've been trying not to go on a big speech about it, but I feel like as good as the data privacy stuff is, there's something dark about it as well, because governments, you know, use all kinds of excuses to get their foot in the door in terms of telling us you know, basically saying you're not responsible enough for protecting your own data, so we're going to put a bunch of rules on it, and that just seems like one more step towards a few things, one of which is greater control over our behaviors through legislation, but also it's saying you're not mature enough to handle your own subscriptions. You can't remember them. Another reason why I'm doing this webinar at magneticmarymethod.com/comp, and I hope to see you there because I want to actually do what I don't see the government doing. What I would expect is, rather than making a bunch of legislation changes, I would expect that the intelligent path would be to force YouTube and Google to show you quick videos that show you and teach you and educate you about how to manage your own subscriptions, how to remember what you subscribe for, how to click the unsubscribe button at the bottom of an email, you know. Leave it to, if they're going to be the powers that be that determine how the internet is, then why shouldn't they do educating all of us to help us keep safe and so forth, instead of doing what's going to be ineffective? I can tell you from a memory perspective, people are not going to, they're just going to become blind to the new check boxes, just the same way we got blind to the cookie policy. It's just annoying that you go to a website and it's like, all right, we have a cookie policy. You have to click here to agree that you're being cookied and all this sort of stuff. This is something where people just need to have education. And I know that there are a lot of elderly people who use the internet, and it is really, really important that they are protected. But it's the job of their families to be part of this, and it's their job as well. I mean, when I'm 80, I hope that I still have the wherewithal to be responsible for myself, and that I have had a life where I have a family who helps take care of me and to make sure that I'm in that position of responsibility for myself, and that I've just basically crafted the community around me to make sure that there's those protections in place. And no government set of regulations forcing website owners to have tick boxes and all of this sort of stuff is ever going to mitigate that. What's going to mitigate it is education, ongoing education about how we are all responsible for the content that we subscribe to. We're all responsible for the things that we need to remember. And when you subscribe to a free course on the internet or whatever, take the course, you know. Only subscribe to it if you're serious in the first place. And, you know, some people are criminal out there. They do not unsubscribe you correctly when you ask to be unsubscribed. And that is a criminal thing, and you can, you know, follow up on that if they're not doing what is needed, right? But it's still up to us as individual learners to manage ourselves and not to get angry when, you know, we are getting emailed by companies that we gave our email to, right? They, and again, there are people who break the law. I get email from people that I have never asked for email from, and there's procedures to follow for that. But overall, and certainly on my own site, if you're getting email from me, it's because you gave me your email address, and really, I am holding this webinar to help educate people to remember more about what you subscribe to remember your passwords, to have a better desktop experience on your own computer, to have your files organized better. I know this is appearing backwards, but I'm sure that you can see that it's COMP, not PMOC, and just go to magneticmemorymethod.com/comp. And this is computer organization equals mental peace or memory peace. And I'm going to do what I don't see anybody else doing. All I got was a bunch of GDPR updates. Some people had some funny things to say about it, like my lawyer forces me to do this or whatever. But no one has ever said in any of them that I've seen, and I've seen probably 100 now, hey, you know what? We're going to have a course about how to be better on the computer. So I'm going to do it if no one else is. And if you want to be there, great. If not, well, maybe the next time. Michael says the most annoying thing is chronology manipulation and hiding recent videos from smaller channels. And Michael says, well said, ongoing education is key. Yeah, I mean, the positive spin or the positive way of thinking about it is to say they're evolving towards something better, and that this is a bumpy part of the process and so forth. That's the positive thing. And I genuinely believe that. I think, you know, probably the whole universe is evolving towards better things. Not that we reify evolution as a good, not evolving towards good or any platonic thing like that. But things seem to be optimizing, let's put it that way. And optimizing takes burn and churn, and you know, we sometimes have to burn the field to the ground in order to get the soil back up to where it should be. We can't just leave all fields fallow and expect them to come back to health. But yeah, it's just an ongoing thing. But at the end of the day, the responsibility lies with the farmer, you know? And if the land needs that much tending all the time, well, then maybe you need to figure out better how you're actually segmenting the land rather than change the tending policies all the time. In any case, let's get off that speech. But it is part of this mental illness issue, and it is part of a lot of things because people are being driven crazy by overwhelm. It taxes the brain, it overwhelms part of the brain, and the only solution is education, and education always starts with responsibility for being the educated person and taking action on an informed basis and an educated basis. So Potato Man says, I've been using an app called Duolingo to learn German and Chinese. I've combined it with the Journey method. What do you think about using apps for learning a language? Well, a good question, Potato Man, and I've talked a lot about it. There are pros and cons to it. The best people that I know that learn lots and lots of languages, like Ollie Richards and so forth, are more or less on my position, which is that you don't leave your language learning to machines. You get actively involved in it at every step. Now, there's also people like Gabriel Weiner who are trying to do better with those apps, and indeed, it looks very promising what he's doing. So my position is that is the same thing that we've just been talking about. The onus is on you as the learner to take responsibility for the outcome. If the app is genuinely helping you and you're honest about it and you honestly are being helped by it, then no problem, right? But the issue is that a lot of people are seduced into thinking they're getting outcomes that they aren't. I've been to lots of polyglot conferences, and what ends up happening is I have many discussions exactly like this. I have all the medals, I have all the prizes, I've gone from levels 1 till 10 or whatever it is, and I've unlocked everything on this or that language learning app, but I still can't speak a word. Now, why is that? Well, there's lots of reasons why. One of which is that being gamified and being good at a game is not speaking a language. So I can do that too. I've done a lot of experiments with a lot of different ones, and from a memory perspective, you know, it's not that difficult to go through and be at the end, the top level, get all the points and so forth. I've seen the charts and graphs that they put out, and I have a really, really good track record, but I've had that same effect. Oh, wait, hold on. This isn't leading to fluency. This isn't leading to any skill in the language. Why? Because it's skill in a game. It's the same thing with memory improvement and focus and concentration apps. And we've seen it again and again and again. We've even seen lawsuits against Luminosity because they were making claims that those apps lead to certain outcomes that they cannot. They never will, because it's not how it works, right? A lot of those apps are based on research from very specific clinical studies and so forth that have nothing to do with learning. They have nothing to do with actual real life practical applications, but they're being marketed as if they do. This is a crime against all the people that would use them. It's misleading, and it has nothing to do with learning. So how do you learn a language? Well, you have goals, you have milestones towards those goals, you have the learning techniques, ideally some memory techniques. The best people always have some sort of memory techniques, and then you use those memory techniques to help you reach those goals. What are memory techniques? Well, association, memory palaces, mnemonic imagery, and then the big five, I call it, of language learning. Reading, writing, speaking, and listening in a way that serves memory, and using your memory to read, write, speak, and listen. And if you get that into a loop, then you're going to go very, very fast, and you do not need a single app in the mix. Some people do use apps, and as long as they're doing those other things, then they're going to ultimately get through to boosts in fluency and so forth. But it can be a lot faster, and certain apps, they actually require you to enter the data, right? To enter the data into the apps. And this is just, to me, a waste of time when you could just get a memory palace going for yourself and go direct from language to mind, right? So you don't have to draw memory palaces. You can get to the level where you just create them purely mentally. I always draw them, or 99% of the time draw them, because of the benefits that drawing process has for enabling yourself to actually get the results. But you don't have to. So you can go straight from language to memory palace to mouth, right? And then you write out what you memorized, and you speak it, and you read it by virtue of having written it, and you go from there. But this whole fantasy that you're going to sit there and look at the same information blazed at you from an app, it's just fantasy. Not only that, but a lot of them just have really, really strange sentences, like red cat drinking blue milk. I'm exaggerating, but there are examples like this that are just never going to appear in your speech. So one of the things that you do with a speaking partner is you focus with goals on actually language you're going to use, right, in real life situations. This is really, really important. So that's one of the problems with the apps. And if you want to link apps with the Journey method, or ideally the Memory Palace method, because Journey and Memory Palace are not necessarily the same thing. If you want to do that, then there's training for that in the masterclass. And I go through the most practical and reasonable ways to do it so that you're really getting outcomes. And Ollie Richards and I have talked about this on the Magnetic Memory Method podcast. Really, really important to be doing this in a reasonable way, in the real way, the way that's going to get actual results, not the fantasy way, not the sit there and look at the same information and get medals and prizes and oh yeah, now they email you what you did, and that's an extra exposure and all that stuff. Repetition and exposure are not the same thing as learning and remembering and getting into use. It's very, very different, very important distinction. So Cat Satan says, do you follow any kind of diet or take care of your memory and body? I'm keen on the keto diet, but don't know that it'd work for everyone. Yes, I am very big on dieting. I'm very big on going to the gym. I'm going to go to the gym after this, and then I'm going to go for digital fasting. I have to go pick up the new Tony Buzan book. I'm going to walk all the way there. I might bring some music, but I'm going to bring music on a very special thing that does not have notifications. It does not have email, it doesn't get phone calls, it doesn't do anything. It's just me and the music, right? And it does enable me to write. And we'll be talking about this on the free webinar, actually, why that I do things that way and why you might benefit from it as well. magneticmarymethod.com/comp, and I'd love to see you on that webinar. But in general, this is very, very important. It's not just physical food, what I eat physically, but it's also mental food and diet, and then going to the gym. And basically, look, the quality of your memory has everything to do with the health of your body, because your brain is a physical thing, and it's hydrated, it's well rested, it's well fed. You're already going to do better. your focus and concentration benefits from all those things, which leads to better memory immediately, because when you're focused and concentrated, you're paying attention to the information. The information automatically has a better chance to percolate down into long-term memory. And when you're paying attention to stuff, you're much more likely to ponder it, you're much more likely to accurately roll it through your mind, and you're much more likely to actually get results from life, right? It's just that way. And people who would rather eat junk food and not go to the gym and all that sort of stuff, yes, memory techniques will work for you, but they're not going to work nearly as well as if you're also attending to those other pillars of life, such as fitness and sleep and diet. Now, in terms of the exact diet, why I say, of course, keto would not work for everyone is because no diet works for everyone. What you need to do is have an N=1 basis. I wish that I had known that from the beginning. I had to wait until circumstances and research and just luck and chance brought me in touch with some proper health consultants, and we went and did a blood analysis and figured out all my food sensitivities. I'd gotten really fat, I was really not well, I was unhappy, and within really months I was in such good shape, and it was because of changing diet and getting rid of toxic foods. Nightshades, are normally thought of as being very healthy. For many people, I'm sure that they are, but for me, they are absolutely toxic, and yet that's what I was eating. And I was wondering, I'm eating a Mediterranean diet, why am I getting fatter and fatter and fatter? Well, we figured it out. And we figured it out because I constantly think of my diet as not what the books say, not what the articles say, not what this or that says, but what my body is actually saying. And you do this through elimination diets, you do it through rotation diets, and it's very powerful, and it all leads to a much better life. Not just memory, but a better life. And the connection there with memory that's so powerful and important is that when you have a better life, you remember more because you live at a higher level that's worth remembering. You just have better experiences. So thank you for that question, Cat Satan, and I still love that name, Cat Satan, and definitely work on your diet. It's one of the most extraordinary things that you'll do. I wish I had done it sooner. And I think one of the reasons I didn't do it sooner is because I had memory techniques, and I was just like, yeah, I can drink beer like crazy. I still remember everybody's name here because I used the techniques. But beer was so poisonous that it just ultimately led to so much physical pain and being overweight and unhappy. And if you look at the old pictures of me, I did not look good. I look like I guess a fun, interesting dude, but I was really, really a fat dude, and I'm glad I got rid of that stuff. And my use of the memory techniques has gotten way better after getting rid of all that stuff, getting rid of beer, getting rid of unhealthy foods that are unhealthy for me. I can't give a speech about this, that, and the other thing, although I do have a course on memory-friendly foods and what you want to avoid eating from a memory perspective. It's all very good science. Of course, you've got to go and check it out with a doctor yourself and verify with your own research what that is all about. Every caveat under the sun, but it's very, very important to understand that there are some foods that are well documented and demonstrated to be better for memory, and there's reasons why. I can't eat them all because of other food sensitivities, but I sure would if I could, because the research is there that it's just so good for brain health and for protecting your memory. And anyway, there's multiple levels and ways to think about it, but at the end of the day, the healthier your brain is, the faster and quicker and more attentive it's going to be. And then when you have memory techniques on top of that, the better you'll be able to use them because of that quickness and attentiveness and so forth. So thank you for that question. Very good one. Keep them coming. And Michael says, do you find mind maps are a good alternative to the Mind Palace method of information? I'm curious if you think of it as an equivalent methodology. Great question, Michael. Thank you for that. If you're joining us live and you haven't hit the thumbs up yet, please do so and leave a comment. Let us know where you are in the world and what you're doing, what you're thinking. Mind Maps is an alternative to the Mind Palace. I wouldn't call it an alternative. I would call it a supplement. And I would say that Mind Maps, I'm not sure they're really that much about memory. I think they're more about creating more associations, more abilities to, more time and more links between things, and really paying each point its due and organizing it in space in a way that can lead to memorization. So for example, if you're doing something and you just follow a clock structure, like you just say, I'm only going to make 12 points here, and it's just 12, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, right? Then you already, like that, by virtue of just saying you're going to have 12 points, you've got a memory palace. It's a different kind of memory palace, but it's not necessarily the purpose or the outcome of mind mapping, because mind mapping is meant to enable free association and allow for different connections to emerge that would only emerge through the use of color, and you're creating a focus point, a focal point, and a means of focusing in ways that you don't normally do. And it's very different than trying to write a top-down outline. If you do a top-down outline, you're going to find the results are very different than from mind mapping. There's lots of ways to use mind mapping, and so I would just say it's not like an equivalent, it's a supplement, and I wouldn't necessarily use a mind map as a memory palace, although I have, and you can, and that's part of this mandala structure here. Like, why is this a memory palace and not a mind map? You know, sometimes it just comes down to semantics, but it's definitely not a mind map in the sense that it's not encoding the information in the ways that mind mapping encodes information. Rather, what it is doing is it's creating a spatial tool for which you can encode without the tools of mind mapping through magnetic imagery. So the distinctions are there, and it just depends on play. One of the things that I was talking about on the chat, the previous chat with Daniel, is really that if you understand what the memory palace really is, which is a spatial-based mnemonic, a location-based mnemonic, then you begin to see everything differently. You begin to see memory palace opportunities in just about everything. Every magnetic image is in itself, almost everyone is then in and of itself potentially a memory palace. But it all comes down to not the fantastical things that you can do with these tools, but what are you going to do in order to reach outcomes, and what's practical to do. So just like many things, there are options and possibilities that you can use these tools for, but they're not necessarily practical relative to very specific and concrete outcomes that you might be looking for. Sandra says, YouTube has been sending me notes saying they have changed rules and asking me to acknowledge and accept the changes, but they never explain what they changed. I just back out without confirming. Is this what you're referring to? Yes, Sandra, that is what I'm referring to. And then the problem is if you don't confirm, then they'll stop emailing you updates. For example, the Magnetic Memory Method YouTube channel videos, which is frustrating because I don't even get notified anymore of my own videos. So I don't know if anybody else is anymore either. And it's kind of frustrating. Edevaldo's here from Brazil, Sahil from India. Thank you, Sahil, for the love from India. I really appreciate it. If you're just joining us, let me know where you are in the world and what you're doing, what you're thinking. And if you have questions about memory improvement or any of the topics in today's general theme discussion. But back to Sandra. Yeah, it's just strange that these changes happen and so forth, but there's lots and lots of things that just keep changing, and that's the nature of the world, and it's also the nature of the internet. But we do our best to keep up with them, but at the end of the day, what's super frustrating is that they're expecting us to manage our own, or we're being expected to manage our own subscriptions, and I certainly do all that I can to keep track of what I've subscribed to make sure that I actually go through free content that I want instead of just being a hunter and gatherer. And when they then make decisions and changes that they're no longer going to notify you because you haven't clicked this or that T&C, well, there's so many T&Cs to click all the time. I think it's just a bit regressive at the end of the day and not necessarily going to get the outcome that they want. And what they want is that people buy more advertising from them. And the only way that they're ever going to be able to get people to buy advertising is if people are able to actually follow their subscriptions, and then ultimately some of those people become customers, because that's just the way it works. And the more that the regulations get in the way of that, the more everything sinks, because you just can't do these things. And you as, it's just caveat emptor, right? We need to be responsible for our own behaviors online, and if we aren't, then we're just asking for trouble by letting institutions and online websites and so forth somehow do that for us. We're going to miss out on so much. So If you subscribe to something, and open its emails and engage with it. And if you're no longer engaging in it, unsubscribe. And don't complain about it. Don't get in a fuss about it. Don't hit the spam button. Just manage your own stuff. Manage your own stuff, and don't subscribe to something if you don't think you're going to use it. It's just that simple. And be aware, be educated about how that marketing language works. You may not know this, but there are podcasts on magnetic memory method about memory and marketing and how that it's used to. And I hope you go and find those episodes, because there's a few of them and they're very near and dear to all of our success in life, is understanding the snares that are out there and being able to discern which businesses actually have our interest in life, and those that don't. And some are very ethical and some are not, but it's up to us to figure it out. We can't expect Mother Government to take care of it. Sandra says unsubscribe has not been working recently. Yeah, I'm not sure where that is. It should be working on my site, and I see when I look that lots of people are successfully unsubscribing when they want to. It's like one a day. But one a day is lots over the course of a month. And we don't like to have to say goodbye, but I totally understand it. I unsubscribe from things all the time. It's just normal, and it's part of the process. And we do all, well, I use a service that is all there, and it makes sure that that's there, the unsubscribe thing. So that is the way that is. We've got to take our own responsibility. And Sandra asks, could that be because I won't check the box? It can be. If you're not checking those boxes, like, things aren't going to work anymore. Pretty soon they're going to be. I think we're going into the dark ages of the internet. Quite frankly, I'm putting something together, and I'm going to have a podcast about it. If you're not subscribed on magneticmarrymethod.com and you're not getting notifications, quite frankly, you're just missing out on what I hope to make the most important educational experience for your memory and memory improvement as a lifelong goal. If it's not for you, no problem. But at the end of the day, it's not going to be through YouTube, it's not going to be through Facebook, it's not going to be through Twitter, it's not going to be through any of these things. The ultimate place where the maximum amount of care can be taken for you is through magneticmarrymethod.com. And if you're not subscribed there, then let me know what I need to do to convince you to be subscribed, because it's all above board, ethical, with your best interests in mind. Yes, I will offer you the Magnetic Memory Method Masterclass. I don't see the big deal in that. If you're averse to anybody ever trying to offer you something, then you should check yourself, I think, about that, because this is just the world. The world is beautiful because we have free market exchange. This is why we have freedom. Right, is because people are able to, amongst themselves, negotiate. Hey, I've got this great thing. Would you like it? Yes. You don't like it? No, no problem. There's the next place, or not at all, right? But this sensitivity that's coming around people not being able to understand this, like, are we going to now go to the grocery store and have to click a box that says, yes, I understand that things are for sale in the grocery store. Yes, I understand that coupons and incentives might appear beneath these products. Like, how ridiculous is this going to get? It's an insult to mature adult intelligence, and it's an insult to any parent who is taking care of their family in terms of their children or senior citizens in their family, because you should be taking care of those people, not expecting the government to do so. I think it's an insult to normal, mature individuals, and you don't see it happening at the grocery store when you go there having to click a box that says, "Oh, you might be offered to buy something here." It's crazy. It's really, really crazy. Potato Man asks, how long is the /comp webinar? magneticmarrymethod.com/comp. I can't legitimately answer that question because we'll have a Q&A, and Q&A goes really as long as people are participating. But I'm going to keep it to about an hour. And here's the thing. If you're in a college lecture, attend your college lecture. Please, Potato Man. I've been a professor, and when those professors put those things together, they're hoping that you are there to pay attention. And you should, I mean, should is a dangerous word. I'm not going to lecture you. But why even go at all if you're not going to pay 100% attention? If you go to magneticmarymethod.com/note-taking, it'll help you pay better attention in those lectures, no matter how boring they are or how useless they seem. But I can't, I don't want you to be at my webinar if you're not paying 100% attention, and I highly recommend you don't go to a university lecture if you're not going to pay attention. Like, what kind of debt are you getting yourself into to pay for university lectures to only half be there? Does that make sense? It doesn't make any sense to me. Again, I want to avoid lecturing you, but when I was a university professor and people were on their cell phones or they were doing anything but paying attention, I used to say, there's the door, don't let it bang you on the way out. Because you're there for a purpose, and that purpose requires paying attention. And otherwise, you're just better off not being there at all, right? So that's my advice to you. Don't just pick one or the other, but I'd suggest that you're investing a lot in your university education. Please be 100%, be all in. You'll learn so much more if you're not splitting your attention. So if that means not being at my webinar, don't be at my webinar, please, because your education is so important. You'll look back at the end of your life and you'll say, I'm sure glad that I gave it my 100% instead of just showing up half, you know what I'm saying? Like, really, really important. This is much more important than this webinar. And again, this webinar is going to be turned into a course. There's no replay, so if you want to be on it, make sure you go to magneticmarymethod.com/COMP. If you'd like to learn what I have to teach there, there will be no replay. But don't skip your university lecture for it, please. It's very important. Michael says, speaking of unsubscribing, do you consider any forms of memory pruning that are not concerned with or are... let me see, start again. Speaking of unsubscribing, do you consider any forms of memory pruning or are not concerned with information overcrowding? Yeah, it's an interesting question, Michael. There's different ways to think about it, and I don't know which ways that you're going with that. But in terms of, like, okay, so one thing is, how do you clean memory palaces? That's one thing. Then there's the sponge metaphor. That's another thing. And so if we take the first one, how do you clean memory palaces? Lots of ways you can do it. You can imagine yourself cleaning it. You can imagine the brooms and the mops from Fantasia or whatever, with the mops and the buckets cleaning it. You can do all that stuff. You can leave it fallow for a while. You can just get on with using it again and forget about any ugly sister effect or ghosting that may occur and just get on with it, right? I don't really find those things to be problematic. So pruning in that sense, no. And then the whole idea of the brain memory being like a sponge, that it will get saturated and you'd have to remove information in order to memorize new information, I don't buy into that. I think that it's not indicated in any memory science that I've seen, and it's not indicated in practice either. There is such a thing as being exhausted and tired and not being able to focus and concentrate, but that doesn't mean your memory is full and you have to somehow expunge a certain amount. Rather, if you're using memory palaces, just to take an example, you have an unlimited amount of spatial memory. Your spatial memory will never be tapped out because you can always add another building. It's like saying that your memory is like a sponge that's going to be filled up and you have to squeeze stuff out to make room for more stuff. It's kind of like saying you can't go to Disney World until that you've erased your experience of Disneyland. Like, it just doesn't make any sense. There's no sense to it at all. No, the truth is not only can you go to Disney World at any time that you want and make memory palaces based on Disney World, and Mr. Toad's Wild Adventure can be the Disney World version different than the Disneyland version. Not only can you do that, but you can actually bridge the two together in an interesting way so that they have compound value, right? So I don't buy into that kind of stuff. And I think the practice is, and this practice is consistent with the memory tradition, is you keep adding more memory palaces, continually adding more memory palaces. Sandra says, I only see your podcasts if I'm looking at the screen using a Kindle and see your face appear with a note saying that the broadcast is beginning in 1 minute. I thought I was subscribed to Magnetic Memory Method. Well, Sandra, that's interesting. I don't access the internet through Kindle, so I don't know what that experience is like, but I can imagine it's not ideal. We know that people access it through many different devices. It's one of the interesting challenges about having a website is that people are accessing it in so many different ways. But we try to have it optimized for all experiences, but through Kindle, I just don't know. Um, if you want to check that you're subscribed, send me an email and we'll make sure that you're subscribed. But you basically should be getting emails every week. Last month's been a little bit off because of hospital adventures and so forth, but normally at least once a week there's an email, often more, and we're working to refine that process. But you need to check that you have whitelisted my address in your own account. If you're using Google, it may be that it's in the promotions tab because Gmail doesn't trust you to be, on top of your own stuff, so they manage where emails go on your behalf, which I think is a bit criminal, but it's a free service, so as it will. But even the paid premium services, they're manipulated by Google and others in terms of where they're going to send spam and so forth. At the end of the day, it's a good, I guess, because the amounts are so overwhelming. But if you don't hear from me or you stop hearing from me, I've probably just somehow been registered as spam. I tried to send an email the other day with the term "your family," right? Do you or anyone in your family have mental illness issues that affect your memory? And I was told by the software that would be a spam warning because spammers use your family so much that now those messages go to spam. This is getting to be insanity, but I guess you're not allowed to use your family in email anymore, is what I understood from that. Pretty crazy. So if my stuff is going to your spam box, please go and check it out and see if you can move it to your inbox through whitelisting procedures if you want to receive those messages. And I apologize on their behalf for any inconveniences, but we do all that we can. And it's just being active with email, opening emails. And if you just don't want to be subscribed anymore, unsubscribe. It's better for everyone at the end of the day, rather than hitting spam or just ignoring it. This is part of the good of it, is that it's forcing us to have better experiences for people, but they're always going to have an 80-20 rule. There's not everybody's going to answer their email at the right time, and so why that they're making legislation as if everybody's going to be all at the same page at the same time is just kind of silly. We're not a school of fish. We're a whole ecosystem of different kinds of people, and you cannot protect all the different kinds of people just because there's some sharks in the water, especially when the powers that be are pretty sharkific themselves in many ways. Anyway, Biker Mike is here from San Diego. Thanks for being here. Potato Man says thanks. Yes, I hope that you will take that advice in the best possible way. Sandra says, so unless I'm looking at your screen, I miss great live broadcasts. Not Kindle, I mean using my iPhone for some other purpose. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, in some cases there are replays, and in other cases there aren't, but I certainly enjoy when and I appreciate when I have earned your attention to that extent, and that you're able to stick with us. But skipping around from this tab or that tab and so forth, we know that that's not a great learning experience. But we're just having a general chat on this case. So you'll often see on webinars, people will say, make sure you're closing all the tabs and so forth. And yeah, sometimes it has to do with them wanting you to actually pay attention long enough to see some offer they're going to make at the end. But in other cases, they actually have and in my case, we have your learning in mind. So, I think the internet has caused people to somehow feel like they're protected from the fact that we live in a free market economy where people make offers and stuff, and now they're just helping people feel ultra sensitive to it. Look, there's stuff in the world, it's for sale. That's great. That's actually a good thing. It helps us have freedom. Speaking of which, go to magneticmemory.com/comp. Computer organization equals mental peace. We're having a webinar on that topic. I'd love to see you there. And, it's a great honor and a privilege to help people with every issue related to memory, and computers are one of them. I haven't done enough training around it, so we're going to make a training. And there's 5 steps we're going to talk about on this particular webinar that have to do with your desktop, has to do with your folders in your computer, has to do with how you're going to manage your subscriptions and remember what you subscribe to, so that when you subscribe to things, you actually remember to take the free courses and read the free books and all that stuff that you're getting. It's going to have to do with mobile, and then it's also going to have to do with passwords. So those are the 5 steps that we're going to talk about. There's not going to be a replay, so make sure that you go to magneticmemorymethod.com/comp and be there. And if you can't be there, then there will be a full course version of it available in the future. So I really hope that you will be able to do that. And Potato Man asks, are you from Germany? No, I'm from Canada, although I did live in Germany for many years. And I love Germany very much and often miss it. But now I am elsewhere, and also enjoying Australia, where I am currently, and really enjoyed that I had the opportunity to live multiple places in the world. So it's great to hear that you're able to live in Japan, I think you said, Potato Man, being originally from India. And like Cat Satan, Potato Man is a pretty cool name. I like that. Let's see if we got any more emails. So yeah, Stephen from Moscow, we went through that one. That was a great one. If you missed it and you're just joining us now, you can always check out the replay. If you are just joining us now and you haven't said hello yet, please hit the thumbs up. Let me know where in the world you're watching from, what you're doing, and what you're thinking. Let's see, going through some email here. Here's one. Anthony, I have a quick question for you. I started this technique to help me in my job. The first item I want to conquer is to remember 40 alcoholic drinks and their recipes, usually 4 to 5 items. I just finished working through the memory boosting program and was wondering how I should go about tackling this list. Well, the first thing is to make sure that you have memory palaces that support this actual goal. Make sure you know how to use memory palaces, set them up correctly, and make sure that not only do you have your memory palaces set up correctly, but that you know how to use magnetic imagery in those palaces, and then you know recall rehearsal, and that you actually do those things. And that's how you would be able to do that quite easily. And of course, in the masterclass there is the FAQ section to go through all of the many different things. And it's just really important to take action, because doing is the origin of all the creativity that you need with this. It's the origin of all the consistency that you need with it. It's the origin of everything that you need with it in order to get results and to get them quickly. All right, so Clay says, I'm 74 years young, and he's talking about his job here. I'll keep that private. I'm wondering if memory palace information might help people in college. Do I have thoughts about how to teach memory techniques to students? Well, yes, actually I do. Many thoughts. I've taught how to be a memory teacher in the mastermind, so if you want to know about being an instructor, that material is there for you in the mastermind if you're in the mastermind. But it all starts with truth, right? So make sure you know how to use the memory techniques, and that you are using them to accomplish goals, and that you have done it from an actual self-exploratory and self-accomplishment level. If you're going around teaching these things without having done it yourself, then you're not teaching them. You're just talking. And so you need to actually be using these techniques in order to be able to explain it. So if you're not doing that, then don't teach it. Or just send it to someone who you think send people to someone who you think is a good teacher, and say, hey, I haven't really gotten into this that much myself, or tell your story about how much you've gotten into it, but you've got to check out this guy. Or there's also some women who have written great books about memory improvement. Send them to people who actually walk their talk, so that the people can get good training. That's really important. But don't ever teach things that you haven't mastered yourself to a sufficient level. And you know what? It doesn't even have to be that massive. You don't have to have memorized thousands of digits of pi or anything like that. If you can just memorize a poem and actually recite it, and you legitimately use the memory tools, well, then you're ready to go, right? So I'm not asking too much of you. I'm just saying, don't teach things that you're not yourself doing. It's very disingenuous, and it's not ultimately helpful at the end of the day for the betterment of the student. So Potato Man says, do you have any good movie or drama suggestions for German and Chinese? Well, in German, Satan's Braten. Uh, Cat Satan would like that movie. Satan's Braten is very good. I think it's sometimes translated in German as Witch's Brew. That's by Fassbinder, who's a great director. I check out lots of his movies, actually. What else? Lola Rent, I think it's called in German. Run Lola Run is the English translation often. Kurz und Schmerzlos is a really great movie. I wrote the actual entry on Kurz und Schmerzlos in the World Cinema Directory from my previous career as a film professor. But yeah, Kurz und Schmerzlos is really, really good. Soul Kitchen is good. There's so much good German movies. If you haven't seen the Mabuse films, Fritz Lang, all the old Fritz Lang stuff, Spion is really, really good. Caligari, of course, is amazing. German cinema is just awesome. Die Welle, see Die Welle if you haven't seen that. Chinese, Devil's on the Doorstep, really great. I don't know Chinese cinema that well, actually. And then, of course, you have the Cantonese and the Mandarin tradition. But Devil's on the Doorstep is cool. There's lots of great Taiwanese films also. So much, but I haven't gotten that deep enough into Chinese cinema to really say. But German, I hope some of those German suggestions are good for you. In general, oh, and you know, one of the things that I did a lot when I was in Germany is I would find German DVDs or English movies that had German subtitles and watch them with the German on and the German subtitles. So like the Kenneth Branagh version of Hamlet with the German on and the German subtitles, you got to make sure that the German audio is linked with the German subtitles, because often it won't be. But I remember the Kenneth Branagh German was linked. And one of the things is that Shakespeare is really good in German. I really like Shakespeare in German when you can find that. And even if you can't, I mean, you can just read Shakespeare in German. And it's really beautiful how it comes across. In any case, I hope those suggestions help. Cat Satan says, what kind of music do you like? Well, that's a good question. I like all kinds of music. I'm a fan of music first and foremost. So on my bass there, I don't know if you can see it, the guitar, I study Bach and the Bach cello pieces, for example. I recently learned some lyrics and playing a song by Lou Reed called My House. I like Lou Reed a lot. I really like a Canadian band called No Means No. And I am now learning to play Hangar 18 by Megadeth, sing along and play it. I've modified it a little bit. It's quite complicated. It's got some neat little things in it that I'll show you since we're here. Why not? So I'm not perfect yet, but it's got this part. I love that. It's so good. Anyway, that's stuff that I like. I like stuff where you use your fingers a lot, and I like to listen to music where the people are using their fingers a lot. So like No Means No, if you never heard No Means No, it's this great Canadian band, and their fingers are all over the place, like that, and then there's one. Yeah, they got their fingers all over the place. I really like that a lot. So any kind of music that's busy and fast and interesting, and you know, I also just like stuff that's chord based, but mostly I'm into fast finger play. Because as a bass player, I was in a lot of bands, and I just get really bored with or just I can't do that stuff. So I always had to be in bands that are like, I'm just making that up, but I got to be all over the place. And if I was in those bands, then I'd be more like the bass player from Rancid. Even if they're just doing chords, I'd have to be all over the place because otherwise I get bored. Um, Potato Man says, "Do you know Sunga Jung? He plays with his fingers a lot." I don't, but I'd love to. If you, I'll type it into the machine here so that I can check it out. Thank you for the suggestion. Sunga. How are you spelling this? Sungha Jung. Oh, there we go. We got tabs and everything. I'll check it out. Thank you for that suggestion. Oh, he looks cool. Nice picture. But yeah, I love all kinds of music. I love country. I love everything. If it's music, I almost certainly like it. I used to play sitar also, and I played flute for a while. The reason I stopped flute is because it started hurting my neck. But otherwise, I'd still play flute. I might go back to it in the form of the saxophone because the fingering apparently is exactly the same. But I love all music. I played trombone for many years. Music is fun. I want to get into drumming also. Drumming, I think, has some interesting memory challenges. Memory both in your mind and in your hands, in your muscles. So let's see here. Anthony, another email. Oh, so we were speaking about spam before. Your email got caught in my spam filter, but I was able to release it. Great. So if you ever don't get email from me, check it out. Tom is saying that he has to memorize diagrams to read from a flowchart and how to draw a flowchart from memory. So those are all great questions, and these are covered in the FAQ section of the masterclass. So if you're able to check that out, then those are right there for you, and people have found them very useful. Cat Satan says, "I wanted to learn how to play the piano, but I have very little time these days." Yeah, there is a way to just, like, if you just put in 15 minutes a day, you'll get very far very fast. You don't have to spend nearly as much time on it as some people think. You can just do little short blasts and get very, very far, very fast. And the thing is, too, is that you're juggling different kinds of information all at the same time. And so in order to be able to master those multiple levels of information at the same time, you need to really bring them together, and it's often best done in short blasts, but spend a bit of time on music theory independently as well. But then take it to an exercise. So if you learn something in theory, take it to the instrument as soon as possible. And that is a very important thing to be able to do. Okay, let's see. A lot of emails from masterclass students, so we'll get through those independently. That is great. Let's see. Cat Satan says, "Have you ever tried productive meditation? I've heard it before and it sounds very good." I haven't heard of it, but let's look it up and see what is productive meditation. Productive meditation. Probably I have tried it, but I never heard that term before. No, I don't see anything coming up called productive meditation. Do you mean meditation for productivity? If so, then let me know. If you're just joining us and you haven't said hello yet, hit the thumbs up. Let me know where you are in the world and what you're doing, what you're thinking. So, let's see. John says, "Good to hear from you. Enjoying the Magnetic Memory Method Masterclass. Already have some success. Just started watching the videos, already making memory palaces. I have many questions, but feel it's premature to ask because I have yet to complete the course. Hoping that my questions would be answered during the duration of the courses. If they're not answered, I'll be sure to ask. Thank you and have a wonderful day." Excellent strategy. Always complete courses. Here's how to complete a course 101. Watch the first video, take notes. Watch the second video, take notes. Watch all the videos and take notes, and then you'll find that usually all your questions are answered along the way. And then if you could try to answer your own questions, then you'll usually find that you'll answer your own questions. And then when you go to the instructor, document what it is you've done on your own, and then show them where you're really stuck, And then they'll be so much more equipped to help you because they'll have this record of what you've done on your own, and be able to look at this history of your own self-education, which all education ultimately is, and be able to really give you laser targeted answers rather than shooting in the dark and ultimately them having to ask you a bunch of stuff. Well, did you try this? Did you try that? Did you watch video 3? You know, for example. And that really, really helps. Jerry says, I'm frustrated about my memory, especially now when I've already improved it a lot by following a particular course. And I get that a lot. People say, well, I've tried this or that course and I'm still struggling. And there's lots of reasons for that. I don't know each and every person, what their learning habits are like, what they are, what they do on a day-to-day basis, how exactly that they are proceeding through the material. But one of the issues that I see a lot of people having is that they want to learn memory techniques as such without directing their focus at particular learning goals and outcomes. And so you best, in my experience with many, many students, is you're best off learning these techniques by directing them at large learning project goals, like learning a language or getting mastery for an exam or something like that, because then you actually practice the techniques with information that's going to improve your life. So that's one of the number one problems. Other trainings, they will say, oh, play these games, and you know, you might get a small general advantage from that, but the kind of advantage that you're looking for requires some real in-depth training. The only game that I recommend is memorizing cards, and it's not really a game, it's a training tool, and it helps your practice for very, very serious reasons that are not that evident when you're just like, oh my God, I'm going to memorize playing cards, like what for? But why is because it helps you juggle multiple levels of information all at once, which is what you need to do when you're learning a language, memorizing numbers, mathematical formulas, names of people, and so forth. You're managing multiple levels of information at once. And this is a good way to practice so that instead of seeing 2 of diamonds, you see Johnny Cash, right? And then instead of seeing 2 of hearts, you see Robert De Niro, in my case. And sometimes multiple images, so that then you practice seeing Johnny Cash and Robert De Niro in a scenario together. And this directly applies to being able to see foreign language vocabulary and something else at the same time. And it's a very, very good way of practicing that and developing your skills, so that when you have it in a Mary Palace and you go, okay, what was there, right? And then you see what was there and you have the practice of decoding it and bringing it back into awareness, so that it's the target information rather than the imagery, but that you can do both at the same time. And that is a power that you can build very, very quickly. But when people struggle from other training, I think that one of the reasons they struggle from the other training is because the other training is just like, memorize shopping lists or play these computer games or blah, 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 blah. No, no, no. That's just a deviation from just getting the skills. Why not go straight to the skills? Yes, in swimming, they spend a little bit of time talking about safety. They talk about the nature of water. They talk about all this sort of stuff, which, you know, is fine. But this isn't swimming. You're not going to drown in information, right? You just dive in with the right tools, which is a memory palace, which already practices your memory. The memory palace creation already helps you look at information, look at one thing, and see other things at the same time. Because now you're looking at something you've seen all your life, or for many years of your life, like your home, and you're then looking at it with a map of a journey that you're going to take through that location. So you're already practicing. If you just dive in, you're already practicing seeing multiple levels of information at once, right? And then you add on what you're already doing. So in your living room, for example, you already can visualize it with a couch in it. So it's not that big of a leap to imagine it now with, what did we have? We had Johnny Cash and Robert De Niro in a fist fight on the couch, right? And then you just say, what did they represent? What did they symbolize? Oh, well, 2 of diamonds and 2 of hearts, right? It's not that difficult. But the thing is that cards will help you. It's the furthest I get away from actual information that will improve your life in terms of practice. But the cards will help you because then you're much better able to do that with real information that matters. And what is the real information that matters? That's up to you. But you could spend some time with a memory journal, and we train you how to do that effectively, so that you're using information to learn memory techniques that's actually going to improve your life, so the memory techniques will actually improve your life. It's just bang, bang, bang. Why fart around with video games and stuff like that when you can just go straight to the outcome, straight to the goal? All right, so Steven says, I'm prepping for a certain exam, CFA. I have failed the first time trying to organize my content, read several books, and I'm looking forward to learning with you. Oh, great, Steven. Thank you. Potato Man asks, do I watch anime? I have in the past, like Vampire Hunter D, I guess, used to count as anime, I think, and Akira, but I haven't watched much anime recently. If you have any suggestions, by all means, send it along. All right. Maricella says, good morning. The 21 Techniques for Memory Improvement post was great. I use repetition and flashcards when I studied business. I like to do conclusions to grab in my mind the principal definitions. The problem is information is too much and I cannot do conclusions because everything is important and you do not know what will be questioned in the test. I'm not sure what is meant there by conclusions, but that sounds interesting. I would like to familiarize with your memory methods to know which ones will work for me. My lifestyle is not easy, but I realize I fall asleep often, and that's because I have a lot of activities to do, and instead of using memory techniques, I want to sleep. Well, definitely take care of sleep. It's a huge part of success with memory techniques, and I'd love to hear more about what you mean by conclusions. All right, let's see here, what else we got? So Frank says he is ready to study because he's got certifications that he needs to complete. Excellent, Frank. Thank you for being here. Really appreciate it. And always great to help people pass their certifications. It's really, really easy when you dive in and use these techniques and just don't delay. Don't delay. It's really important. Cat Satan says, I've read about productive meditation on a book called Deep Work by Cal Newport. It's kind of a meditation where you do walking, jogging, or doing any physical activity and you focus on a task. Okay, that sort of thing. Yeah, certainly I've done that a lot. I mean, one of the things that I like to do while walking is something like Kirtan Kriya, or doing some work with Sanskrit, for example, or just rehearsing memory palaces. So Kat says, keep bringing your attention to the task, like outlining an article, making progress on a proof, and so on. Yeah, there's lots of ways. I wouldn't call that productive meditation, but, well, I mean, it depends, right? So walking and doing Kirtan Kriya, or walking and doing some work with Sanskrit, that's definitely productive meditation. But there's also, like, when I want to learn a new thing with cards, maybe a particular cut, if I needed to get better at a cut like this, then what I would do is have the deck on a counter that I'm always passing, and then every time that I pass it, I would just pick it up, execute that cut, whatever cut would be. Maybe it's a cut like this, you know, and I would just practice it that way, and have that be something that's done when you always pass that area. It's almost like clicking off a checkbox if you worked in a factory. You know, you see sometimes you're in the hospital or you're in a mall, or the security guards go and you see them, they're tapping as they go past a particular check spot. Well, we can all do that in our own lives. So, you know, if you're learning a language and you have your language learning textbook open on the counter, every time you go from the kitchen to the bedroom or whatever, you can just say, hey, look, there's the top word on my list. I'll make a magnetic image for that in a memory palace, and do that every time you go past. Yeah, you get pretty far that way. Or if it's a mechanical skill like this, or every time you walk past the guitar, you pick it up and you strum a little lick that you're working on. Yeah, I can see that working. I've done it. It's very good. It's very powerful. Okay, let's see. What else do we have here? Got lots and lots of email. Hundreds of emails. I love it, though. Keep them coming. Lots of business emails recently as well. I always appreciate that. People are helping spread the word and getting invitations to do this, that, and the other thing. So that's cool. Maybe we'll be coming to a city near you one of these days soon. That would be fun. Let's see, what do we got in our email? If you're just joining us and you haven't said hello, let's see, what else do we got? So many emails. Wonderful, wonderful emails. Oh, so we got one here. Someone's just got the masterclass. Thank you for grabbing that. Lots of memory palaces are coming in. If you haven't sent in your memory palace, by all means, get started. Get drawing them. There's been some updates in the masterclass actually with some memory palace reviews, and there's some more new videos in the FAQ section to help people. So if you want to be able to see other people's memory palaces and me walking through what to do to improve them, that's there, updated in the master plan, for example. You can go in and grab that. And there's some new stuff in the FAQ section about memorizing poetry with some very specific lines of poetry, very good poem that you can check out. And there's some stuff on diagrams and flowcharts that has been uploaded that the person who made the request is really, really happy about and grateful for. So that's always good. So Ken says, I'm taking a builder's license class and need to be able to learn how to learn at a much faster pace with better retention. Also recently have 2 stepsons that speak Spanish due to a marriage, want to learn to speak Spanish, and am committed to learning 100 words and 5+ phrases in 60 days, and looking for an idea of where to begin. Well, I would suggest reading my book on Spanish vocabulary, and congratulations on the marriage, by the way. That's very good, always good, and having some stepsons to speak Spanish with sounds exciting. Where to begin? Yeah, create memory palaces. This is good that you have a very specific goal. So 100 words plus 5 phrases in 60 days. Notice how that's so crisp and specific, right? Because now what we can do is say, okay, so 60 days, that means that in 30 days we're looking at 50 words, right? And that means that we're really only looking at, you know, a little more than maybe 15 words a week or something like this, right? Less than 15 words per week. And so this is very, very doable. And only 5 phrases, well, heck, we can actually have phrases for every single one of those words, and in many cases we can use those words in more than once, or more than one word in each phrase and so forth, so you get the compounding effect. But when you have goals like that, you're much more likely to get success, and that's crisp. I think he's actually underdoing what's possible for him, but that's also great. I mean, just starting out. So create memory palaces, keep creating them, and take those words, organize them, strategize them, and start to memorize them, and then add phrases once you've memorized them and followed the big 5. Very easy, very easy. So that's a great email. Nathaniel says, my pain point is organizing information I've learned as I'm developing new professional skill sets. Well, that's great. You know, organizing learned information is really easy if you memorize it or in an organized fashion in the first place. And then if you do the big 5, which involves reading, writing, speaking, and listening, you then begin to self-organize in terms of where it's stored in your brain, and you have written summaries and so forth that you're able to go through. That's really powerful. Powerful indeed. So organization is something you can build from the beginning for yourself. That's why I always experiment with different ways of making memory palaces, because it's so powerful. It's so powerful. All right, Cat Satan, thanks for being here, and look forward to the next time. It's always wonderful to have great questions and great interaction, and I really appreciate it. Let's see here. Trying to see what else we got here. So someone is asking about the Lucasa, and yes, we have definitely talked with Lynn Kelly on the Magnetic Memory Method podcast about that, and you can read about that in the memory code, and we may add something about that in the FAQ section in the near future, which would be great. But in general, the Lucasa is a memory palace just by other means, and the experiment there is really not that different than what you're doing unassisted, or in drawing your memory palaces. I have essentially been suggesting you make a Lucasa all along. So it was not a surprise to me to see that this was as ancient as as Lynn Kelly was able to unearth in the memory code, because it's just so obvious. It's so obvious how important and powerful it is to externalize your memory palace journeys, particularly if you lack a mind's eye. So let's see here. So this is from Padma Shri, who says, if I were to use the same memory palace to store different pieces of information, like when I have a lot of information but I don't have as many palaces at hand in my mind, is it all right? Is there a chance of getting things mixed up if I use the same place to store different stories? I don't think there's any chance of getting messed up unless that you make the dedicated decision that you want to get messed up, and you don't continue to educate yourself about these memory tools, and that you don't learn about the ugly sister effect and ghosting and so forth, and see them as the resources that they are. They're assets, not problems. Really, really important. So if you want more ways to create assets for you, I suggest that you find some mental peace through computer organization, which is why we have magneticmerrymethod.com. No, magneticmerrymethod.com/COMP. And that is computer organization equals mental peace. And so that's a new webinar coming up with some 5 strategies for you on how that you can use memory palaces to help yourself memorize the information that you need to deal with on your computers. So go to magneticmerrymethod.com/comp to get registered. There's no replay. It's taking place in a week, and I'd love to see you there. So thank you, everybody, for being here today. It was a great honor and privilege always to hang out with you, to answer memory questions, to just engage in the general topic of memory as a part of ongoing education. Played a little bit of guitar. If you missed that, you can go and watch the replay. Thanks for the questions about music. I really appreciate that. And look forward to seeing you at magneticmerrymethod.com in the near future. If you haven't visited the site, we do have a new post on mental illness issues and memory training, brain exercises for Memory Palace. I'm going to update the description below, and we're going to carry on with that topic because it's very important. Richard's here. Hey, where do I put my single pegs? I don't know what you mean by single pegs. As I'm winding up here, if you can speedily make your question a little more clear, that would be great. Sandra says, thank you for your patience with our questions. Take care. Richard says, single memory. Not sure what you're meaning, Richard, but you're free to come and post on magneticmerrymethod.com. And there's a post on pegs. So if you search the site for pegs, then that would be a great place to post your question, or you can get in touch by email. But as you would have seen earlier in this replay, the best way to get questions answered is to study the techniques, to implement the techniques, and to practice the techniques, and then try to answer your own questions. Because part of what you're asking, needs a bit of practice with the techniques. And if you are asking where in your memory palace these memories go, please go to magneticmerrymethod.com. Take the free course. It answers all those questions for you. And then document your answer or document your questions there. There's a homework assignment there for you that will help you figure that out. And if you haven't taken the free course, please do. It's at magneticmerrymethod.com. Just register for it. Free course is very, very prominent there. And if you want to be on a webinar, magneticmerrymethod.com/comp. That is happening next Friday. So if you're watching this replay and it's not next Friday yet, that is for me, 1st of June, which will be the day earlier wherever you are in the world. And it depends on where in the world it is. It's the evening and late afternoon for North America. And it should be well enough timed for Europe to be there. I really appreciate each and every one of you who is interested in memory improvement and in optimizing your brain. And Richard said, thanks, you're the man. Sorry, I'm so bummed to cut you at the end. Been following you, keep it up. Thank you, Richard, I really appreciate it. But generally the answer to your question is if you haven't created memory palaces according to the highest and the most optimized possible principles, then the answer is in the training. And it is in taking action with the training. And then when you've done the training, these live sessions are so much more valuable. And also, everything is much more valuable when you are also working to answer your own questions, because memory techniques are self-study based, right? And then they are constant practice. And constant practice doesn't mean lots and lots of practice. It just means, it's just like anything. If you want to maintain your body at the gym, which I'm going to the gym as soon as we end this, then you got to continue going to the gym. It's not like once in a while. So yes, we're at the end, but I really appreciate your question, and I hope that you will take me up on the offer for that free training at magneticmarymethod.com, because then the conversations and the questions that we have become so much more interesting, so much more powerful for your practice technique, practice with the techniques. And you just take it one sip at a time. Study the techniques, implement the techniques, and practice them with the information that will improve your life. So thank you again, everybody, for being here today. Until we have a chance to speak again, come visit me at magneticmarymethod.com. Check out the new podcast on mental brain exercises for mental health, and be involved in the discussion. Post your questions on those posts, and please help us by sharing them and hitting that thumbs up and coming and discussing on the replays here as well. And until we speak again, keep yourself magnetic. Bye-bye.